a slightly wandering attention, hosted by Eric Tivers. ADHD and autistic therapist and coach. Hear stories and strategies from folks like you and me. You don't have to mask, you don't have to hide. Let yourself be seen. ADHD rewired. It's more than just a podcast. ADHD rewired. It's coaching and community. We're wired for connection. You are not alone. ADHD rewired. Find us at ADHDrewired.com for the links and more. Starting is the hardest part. So let's get started.
Welcome back to another episode of ADHD Rewired. We are here with a special collaborative session. We are doing our annual Pride, Neurodivergent Pride panel with Shimmer Coaching. And we're just going to introduce everyone on the panel now.
Okay, Savant, you're up.
Hello, my name is Savant. I relate to the queer community just because I relate to being gay or gay, pansexual. It is a spectrum that I'm learning, as well as I am neurodivergent by way of autism. I have ADHD. I have sensory motor OCD, as well as Savant syndrome.
Thank you. And Kristen.
My name is Kristen. I relate to the LGBTQ+ community as a lesbian. I have ADHD. I was also diagnosed with autism a couple weeks ago, so that is new to me. And I am also under the non-binary umbrella. I identify as agender, and my pronouns are they, them.
Yay, thank you. And I guess Jill, you can go. Oh, actually, no, everyone can do theirs. Eric, you go next.
Okay. I am ADHD, and I am also bisexual. Maybe technically pan, but I always just still identify with the bisexual terminology. And I'll also share here that I also identify as polyamorous.
Awesome.
Which, by the way, last year I was like nervous to say that, and I didn't. So
yeah, I feel like you have a new disclosure everywhere we do this, so this is fun. I'm excited to see what comes up next year. Jill?
I love that. I am Jill, and I'm an ADHDer. I was also diagnosed with a learning disability as a teenager, and I identify as pan, but Eric, like you, that kind of like bi to pan pipeline, I think, is like super real for a lot of folks. And so I've been, sometimes I claim bi, but pan is definitely more authentic for me.
Awesome. And hi, everyone. I'm Chris. So I will be your moderator. I may pop in here or there, but I am pansexual and I have ADHD. Okay, let's get into the first question. So I know you all shared your queer and neurodivergent identities already, but this question, actually it's not typed there, but is more about how do those things intersect? So what is it like to live with the two together? Just helping people understand a little bit about your unique lived experience. And I know that oftentimes like other intersectionalities, maybe not related to queer and neurodivergence, may play into that. For example, for me, maybe being Asian. So if you want to share other identities in there as well, you don't need to choose, just sharing a little bit to anchor us in your specific experience. And I'm going to shake things up and go in a different order. Kristen, you're up first.
Okay. I would say the biggest way that my queerness and my ADHD have intersected is through the lifelong journey of masking versus unmasking. I am not a late bloomer, but a later bloomer in just about every category. I was not diagnosed with anything until my late 20s. Nor did I know that I was a lesbian until I was 28, because I genuinely did not know. Long story short, my body and brain just did not think I was safe for me to know that about myself. And when I was recently diagnosed as autistic, my provider explained to me that she sees a lot more high masking and camouflaging behavior in autistic people of multiple other marginalized identities, because the masking as a survival mechanism has been so deeply embedded on all the levels for so many years. So I think right now I'm learning that the work of being both queer and neurodivergent in the world is learning what does safety feel like to me and what does unmasking feel like in real time.
Yeah, I love that. And I resonate with so much of it. I'm curious, when you said that you didn't know you were a lesbian until you're 28, did you identify as bi before or straight?
I did. I like to joke now that I am a retired bisexual. I thought I identified as bi for about 10 years before I decoded that what I felt was attraction to men was not. So that was a very long and winding journey to get to where I'm at now.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing. Savant, you want to go next?
Ah, um, so I wasn't, I wasn't diagnosed is the word. So I'm also semi-verbal. So that's why I also speak with my hands. This is gesticulation, which is nothing but like mind-body coherence. And whenever you have a verbal disability, it kind of takes on its own form. So if I were to stop using my hands, we'd start being able to see that my voice gets a little crazy. But I did not know that I was high masking until I was 30, technically 32. I found out that my neurodivergency was spilling out right at the end of 31. I was in horrible burnout and didn't know. But it's interesting because I've always felt odd about calling myself gay. I've always told people it's easier for me to tell people I'm Black. It's easier for me to tell people I'm gay. They see and then they don't have to think too much. But whenever I started to understand, like, number one, I feel like just a spirit floating around in a body, then to unmask your autism and then all your other stuff, you're like, oh. So now it makes sense that even trying to still to this day put myself under gay and Black, I'm understanding that there's a cocoon or a cage that I've accidentally accepted that I'm like slowly breaking out of. So that's where we are right now.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. And I also resonate with a lot of what you're saying. Jill, you are up next.
Amazing. Yeah, a lot of this resonates. For me, my, my neurodivergence and my queer identity, I think like Nick Walker's work on neuroqueer and like being neuroqueer and neuroqueering has really resonated with me. Just this idea that the way that I move through the world, the way that I show up is subverting norms in a lot of different ways. And so it's been, I mean, it's an ongoing process. I think like I'm always kind of creating my identity, and my relationship with masking is, kind of a love-hate relationship with my masks, and I'm still learning, what they are, what they look like, what I want to hold on to intentionally or not. But I've identified as queer for oh gosh, probably like 15, 20 years now. And identifying as neurodivergent is far more recent. Even though I knew that I had a learning disability, it was something that I kind of put in the background. But once I was able to kind of see that as a neuroqueer identity and put them together, it resonated a lot more. And so that work has really meant a lot to me. And I definitely see myself as neuroqueer.
I love that. And I'm excited that you guys are all bringing up masking, and to the people asking in the chat too. Masking is question number 3, so we will get there. Eric.
Oh, well, I kind of connected and knew that I was not straight when I was like probably like 5. I just always kind of knew. But then after coming out to my parents as bi at 14, it wasn't like a hatred response, but it was definitely not an accepting response. Um, I mean, and it was also a clearly misunderstood response, as my dad came home with a couple Playboy magazines the next day, which is like comically tragic to me when I think about that. It's just like, oh, Dad. So I kind of stepped back into the closet for many years. Always people that I was close with, I always shared. But it wasn't until kind of post divorce during COVID, or I'm just like, I am open and value vulnerability in all other aspects of my life. Why am I not being open and like about my sexuality? And so I came out my podcast a number of years ago, and have been, really, I think, stepping so much more into my sexuality, my identity, even like, and I'm still kind of figuring out my like gender identity. It's because it's like I never like whenever someone's like, "Hey, bro," I'm like, "Who are you talking to?" Right? Like I don't connect to that at all. But like, so I don't know. It's a really been an interesting journey. And I think too that part of where the intersection for me is also getting diagnosed autistic last year after being really, really deep in burnout due to like masking so like intense I didn't even realize that I was doing it. Um, that it one of the reasons I think the intersection is lovely is especially in some of the queer and poly and kink communities, which are adjacent to a lot of the queer communities. Like communication is it's necessary, and like you can't do the like unspoken thing. Like, oh, they'll just get it. They'll know. It's like, no, it's like let's be really clear about our communication, and that works super well for me. And I just wish like every relationship in my life was like that, where there wasn't guessing. Because it's just like, just say what you think and let's communicate because it makes everything easier.
Yeah, I love that. I had so many thoughts come up as you were speaking. And then also it links to what someone else is saying in the chat, but I really resonate with like going back into the closet. So I came out when I was 22. But every time I was in a relationship with a man, my mom would be like, "Oh, you're straight again," or my dad would be like, "Oh, you're straight again." And then now I am, for the first time in my entire life, like since adult life, I'm dating a woman, which actually she's
Woohoo.
here, Ari is here, the ADHD entrepreneur. Shout out to her. Um, yeah, she's like, it's like I came out all over again. She was like all confused about the whole thing, and so that back in and out of the closet is such a relatable experience for me for being pan or I think just bi/pan. And I got diagnosed with ADHD when I was 28. So it's interesting because I feel like with both of them, I'm like constantly coming in and out of the closet or like constantly disclosing to people. And as your life changes, I feel like how people understand it or how they project onto you will change with what they see from you as well. Thank you everyone for sharing that introduction. Let's pop into the second question. Okay, so this one, we're gonna start with Jill. How have heteronormative expectations or neurotypical expectations impacted you?
Yeah. How haven't they? Like this is super real, but what comes to mind is I'm also child free and building, child free community. And so that's one of the ways that I definitely have subverted, the heteronormative expectations. I am also married to a cis man. And so, the queering of my life is also complicated for some folks from the outside. But definitely being child free and prioritizing, other aspects of my life and neurotypical expectations, how that has affected me. That's a really interesting one. Definitely, I would say mostly at work. It's the way that I started to show up in my career 10 years ago. I just didn't Things just didn't make sense to me. A lot of the expectations, the unwritten norms, it just felt like I was missing something. And it has felt like I've been missing something for my whole career until I really went into solopreneurship fully last year. And that's a common experience for neurodivergent folks, I think, for a lot of reasons. But the way that we're expected to show up at work, especially because I worked in the nonprofit space, the social justice space, sometimes the cognitive dissonance that I would see and witness and the hypocrisy around some of the work that's being done, I found it really difficult to reconcile. And that was really, really stressful. it just didn't make sense to me why we would say one thing in one way and the research would say one thing in one way and then we would do another. And so these kinds of expectations have impacted, my career trajectory and conversations with family. I've finally stopped being asked when I'm going to have kids, so that's a win. But I would say that those are the ways that heteronormative and neurotypical expectations have impacted me the most.
Yeah, and I love what you said about solopreneurship and how I think a lot of us didn't feel like we fit in other more typical places or I don't know if typical is the right word, but you know what I mean. And so we just created our own because now when I look at us here, like all of us have non-traditional roots. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. Eric, you can go next.
No, it's really interesting because until I don't know, a couple of years ago, for me, it was always like I never even thought that being in an actual like relationship with a man was even an option. I was just like, dude, it's this thing I do secretly on the side, and it's like, but I'll date women because that's like just what society expects. And just like over the last few years, just like being open to that has just been really like I really love who I've been becoming as I've been stepping more and more into my queer identity. Where it just feels so much more of like, yes, like this is like I've been doing my nails a lot lately and I really love it. Because it's just like, I don't know, there's something about like just not like it's like that idea of I just don't have the time, energy, or bandwidth to not be who I am. Right. And if I am in a straight appearing relationship, it's like I want to make sure people don't actually think I'm straight because like 'cause I'm not. Right. So I think that that's been like the one of the big things. And like when I was like growing up and like I got made fun of in middle school, like it's at least in the 80s and 90s, what was the the most popular insult? You're gay, right? And actually there was someone in my middle school who literally wrote on spray paint on the side of my middle school building, Tivers is gay, right? So like mean stuff. And it's just like, they weren't completely wrong, but that was still mean though. So, it's like the idea of, oh, if you're not a bro, you must be gay. And it's just like, so I don't know. I've just been trying to not even unlearn, just like push against the norms because that always works for me. It's like whether it's with my neurodivergence or my sexuality, it's like I can only be me, and that's the best version of me who you'll ever get is me being fully me, the weird queerdo that I am.
I love that. And I don't know how everyone's doing those exploding hearts, but there's all sorts of hearts flying up here. And your nails look great. Kristen, you're up.
Yes. Well, I definitely can't answer this question without touching on my experience with religious trauma. um, they say laughing. um, I, from a very, very young age, I think a lot of um, young queer and neurodivergent kids pick up on this narrative that we are inherently wrong or bad somehow, but we can't put our finger on what it is because we were young, undiagnosed people. And we didn't have, for whatever reason, masking or lack of access to diagnoses and support. We just didn't know why we were different. And I know that for me, my family was not religious, but I wandered into church with a friend of mine when I was about 12. So peak feral middle schooler weirdness, starting to feel very strange in my skin and thinking there's something wrong with me, but I don't know why. And then lo and behold, the big thesis of this institution is, did you know there's something wrong with you inherently? And I was like, yes, I did know that. I did know that. Tell me more. Do you have the solution? And they were like, yes. So very, very quickly, that became the axis that my world turned on, was, my faith in this religious tradition. And that provided a lot of things that my neurodivergent brain needed to thrive, like structure and an environment where community was guaranteed. But then, of course, this also led to the suppression of pretty much every other aspect of who I am as a person. So I think what eventually um, helped me heal and unmask both my queerness and my neurodivergence was learning that I am inherently good and that I do not need to be fixed at a fundamental level. We are good at our core. And yeah, I think everything, all of the unmasking and everything that came after had to be built on that. It was almost like I had to open this like series of doors where my truth was at the center of this maze, both my queerness and my ADHDness. I had to like open all these locked doors to get there. And the first door that I had to unlock and the truth that I had to believe was I am inherently good and I am going to be safe to look inward and learn these things about myself.
Wow, I love that. And isn't it incredible that now you reach like hundreds of thousands of people and you're like part of their journey now? Like if you just look back at little Kristen.
Oh, yes. Truly, like where I am now would send like middle and high school Kristen into a coma. Truly.
Thank you for sharing, Savant.
Um, I'm with you on the religious trauma. Yeah, so I have the same kind of upbringing. I'm from Houston, Texas, so I'm Christian based, as I like to call it, even though now I'm spiritually ambidextrous. But I will go ahead and tell you, it definitely made unmasking harder. It made living in secret really hard because I never even realized that church is kind of built to make sure that even when you're alone, you still feel like you have the government watching you. Like God is truly the government. But it's interesting because now I look at myself, and especially with a lot of my Savant syndrome really does something different to a lot of this stuff going on up here. So there's a lot of things that I didn't realize that when people say programming, it's so true. Even to the point of I really have just been thinking I'm truly autistic and that ADHD was this like LOL. I would say probably within the last month have I come to the first time. I'm 33. I found out that I was autistic at 32. And here it is now. I'm like, oh, ADHD burnout. You and me have been best friends our whole life. And I am now sitting here in a pile worth of stuff like, oh, this stuff is real. And trying to pretend that you're neurotypical and having this like high masking persona, it really does somehow inhibit the idea of like, I can't see me burning. And it took me to again unmask for me to say, oh, yeah. From everyone that's kind of helped raise me, the idea has always been, we have nothing to show. There's nothing going on. And I've been doing this for so long, especially again, masking the verbal kind of thing where again, I'm Black, I'm gay, and I'm from the South. So this idea of like you being soft, you being romantic, you being queer, you don't even, and that's the idea. Even when it comes down to like the dichotomy in the Black community, you can be gay, you can't be bi. I would go ahead and tell you, I've seen people not make it in our community. And I'm just like, well, you can be, right? And I realized, oh, I have to ask that to other people still. Autism, I think. So just trying to really understand that my observer brain didn't know that it was always outward and never facing back inward. And so having to understand that this whole mirror portion of my life that's kind of unmasking is, it's a little awkward because I am turning my mask a little bit more outward so everyone can see me. So we can all go through this journey together. But I will go ahead and tell you, I have my times too where I'm like, you want to unmask and cry? And I'm like, nope. I'm neurotypical, at least until tomorrow. So this is again where we are right now.
Oh, wait, Savant, can you share a bit more about your sentence around like you can be gay, but you can't be bi? I was having this conversation this morning, so I want to hear where that comes from and like if you can just share a bit more context.
Yes. people do not like the fact that there aren't boxes. Even when you come to the idea of like LGBTQIA plus, you would think by now we would have gotten rid of the letters and just be like, look, the rainbow. We get it? No. I think words are such a weird, like contractual thing that especially in the English language, English is nothing but contracts. So I think whenever people try to go, you can be gay in our society of Black queerness, being a man and still at the very least being with a man, that mask for mask thing is very heavy. But whenever you try to go back and forth, I won't lie, because of a lot of the stigma around Black gay communities, you have HIV, you have trans, and I mean, you just have so many of us on the front line getting our butts whooped, that when it comes to those dichotomies of women or femme in specifically, I can understand why the feminine divine and the feminine masculine. I mean, the feminine divine and like the masculine divine in the Black community. So there's just not as much of a bridge of like someone's able to be like, I sleep with this person and that person and I can remain myself. Because if people don't know how to clock you today, they don't know how to really react if something different is going tomorrow. And people can't handle your change because then they have to adjust. And people don't like to adjust in present time, is my sentence to that.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. That was really helpful, and I saw a lot of resonating in the chat as well. Thank you guys all. That was awesome.
Support for this podcast comes from ADHD reWired's coaching and accountability groups. We are not currently open for registration, but if you've been curious about joining a future group, you can get on the interest list at coachingrewired.com, and we'll let you know when future groups begin forming. Support also comes from Adult Study Hall, ADHD reWired's virtual co-working community. Try it free for a week, and it's only $19.99 a month, or save 43% when you purchase an annual membership. Go to adultstudyhall.com to learn more. That's adultstudyhall.com. Support also comes from patrons like you who support us at patreon.com/ADHD rewired. Curious about coaching? For just $25 a month, you can join me and a small group of other patrons for an hour of action coaching. We do it every fourth Tuesday of the month at 4 p.m. Eastern. And if you would like to work with me one-on-one, I am offering therapy for neurodivergent adults in Illinois and coaching no matter where in the world you are located. You can schedule a free 15-minute consult with me at ADHDrewired.com and just click on services at the top of the menu. That's ADHDrewired.com. All right, that's it. Let's get back to the panel.
Orion, do you want to move to the next slide? Okay, this is the one people have been waiting for. Around masking. So let's start with Eric. How have you navigated masking, either or all identities, at home and work? And I know in the chat, someone asked to how you navigate it, positively, like any tips, tools, like that kind of thing to help people move to the next stage of wherever they're at.
I think anytime for myself anyways, anytime that I'm trying to understand anything, I do what my therapist at the time told me, well, that's a very autistic approach. And that's like when I was learning about like whether it was trauma or polyamory or neurodivergence, I will literally for like a year or two read books that is nothing but that topic. And so when what's interesting for me is that I have actually was specializing in autism 15 plus years ago. My son was then diagnosed when he was 2. And after his diagnosis, I kind of stepped away from it because it was kind of too close to home. But I always kind of related to autism. I think I had some blind spots. So whenever I would like fill out those own like assessments, I was always just kind of missing it. But there was pieces that I was not aware of. And so I think that like for me, part of navigating the unmasking process, I would recommend anyone who has not read any of Devon Price's books to just devour them, because he's almost like the Brene Brown of like the queer community. They put words to the things we've all felt, but weren't quite sure how to like express. And this idea that I find so fascinating that I'm finding is so common is that as especially ADHDers who are learning that they are also autistic, are finding that as this discovery of that happens, that more and more of their autistic traits are actually kind of coming out, and it's kind of wild, you know. It's um and on many fronts, it's been super positive. On other fronts, it's been challenging. Like I had probably about 6 months ago or so, I had what I would say was my first like legit autistic meltdown. Where like and it like it scared me actually. You know, it was like was just overstimulated and my nervous system was just like my brain just couldn't handle what was happening. And you know, being both a clinician and a parent of an ADHDer who has worked with people and my son who would, when they get in this like really intense overload, would like engage in like self-hitting, and I always just like my heart always broke when I saw that, and I was just like, "Oh, what is happening that's driving me to do that?" And then about 6 months ago, I was that person, and it was like it was scary, and it was just like you know, so the unmasking process for me, you know, has been a process of true, like severe burnout recovery. Because it was, and you know, people in my community know this too, is that like I was about a year or so ago, I was pretty close to like actually walking away from my business because like I was just my mental health was not great. Um, as I was kind of going through this unmasking and doing a lot of trauma work and you know, and I had a bunch of like relationships, like professional relationships that you know, kind of soured because you know, I got feedback that I reach out mostly when I want something. And it was fair feedback. It hurt to hear, but it was fair feedback. And it's like that recognition of like, oh, like reaching out to people just to maintain relationships, I find that almost like work, and it's like it takes a lot of my social battery. And so for me now, it's like with that awareness of it, I don't pretend about that anymore. Like I'm just like, yeah, I'll call you tonight if I have any energy left. Um, you know, so I think that and even like in my business, like you know, I had a bigger team a while back, and I realized that like after like a team meeting, which is kind of less structured, like I was just like exhausted afterwards. Where like when I'm like leading a group, like my coaching groups, like I know the agenda, I know how this goes. Like so to me that was energizing. But when it's a little bit more of like this collaborative process and decisions are being made and like all those like real time sort of executive functions, I realized like I didn't have the capacity for it. And so like I kind of stopped like having meetings with my team for a while, and like it just kind of been shrinking while been allowing my nervous system to heal. And it's been a process. And part of that process has been I've been doing a lot of meditation. I'm like at like 145 consecutive days of meditation. And that's like I know, right? Thank you. And so it's been, I mean, really, I would say over the last 5 years, it has been a journey of unmasking and coming into who I am, and it's been hard and worth it.
I love that. So I heard the meditation as one of the tips that you have. And it sounds like also maybe you and your son have gotten some maybe bonding through this.
Yes, we especially in the evening when he's getting ready for bed, we like to have our weird time together where we just like stim together like in bed while he's, you know, like winding down, and and we love it, and it's just like it just makes me really happy. And like and I love that his like he has a friend group now, and like they're mostly queer, and I love that too.
Aw, I love it. Thank you for sharing. We'll just switch up the order of it. Not because I don't remember the order, but Savant.
And it's okay if you don't, by the way. We all get it.
Um, n- uh, Masking is kind of my thing. um, so one of the first things that set off my specialist whenever I was diagnosed, is she said you have a lot of abilities that most of the people she diagnosed didn't have, and I didn't know anything. I just was like, someone help, the world is kind of changing before my eyes, and, and everyone is not reacting the way that I thought. For me, my unmasking followed me around my whole life because there are very specific things that would happen throughout my life that I never knew were unmasking, but mine's are a lot more like neurological. So, for instance, I have what's called the peanut butter feeling. Whenever I'm outside of my mask, the pace of time, the way that I perceive it, feels different. And I didn't know that was a thing. I would always say that the world felt like it was going through peanut butter, but because that was the correct pace that I was moving too fast through. So for me, I had always known that I had those moments in life of being like, is anyone else see this? Anyone else feel this? Also, if you've never been outside and seen the literal outside get brighter and you're like, is this the rapture and no one else moves? And I was like, okay, I don't know what's happening, but this used to happen to me maybe once to twice a year and I could ignore it. Right before I was diagnosed, it was happening like once every other day. And that's when I knew that I needed help. So then the diagnostic specialist that I had, I worked with someone at, oh, I'll have to remember who did my diagnosis, but I will tell you that the woman was specifically trained for people who did it. And specifically, I was in musical theater. So musical theater for me is what taught me how to mask in like a very like boot camp way. My therapist said, had you been spotted at a young age, she said you would have, you probably like, do we think like, am I diagnosed at a level 1? Yes. Whenever hello, fast unmasking. Whenever I finally unmask, you can see everything, but I will go ahead and tell you that the cognitive understanding of how I mask, even from like holding my stomach in, so you don't actually hear the fact that I need my hands to keep me on track whenever I'm speaking. But even like understanding that even unlocking my eyes from the screen right now helped me unmask. I've been able to like really quantify those ideas and I've been able to help other autistics and some other people on the neurodivergent spectrum unmask. But I will go ahead and tell you, unmasking is not cool in being gay. And again, the gay boys in New York City, I think they're hot. They see me and they're like, oh, and then they get this and they're like, wait. And so it makes it a little harder for me sometimes to know like where do I start? My mask goes very, very low. People call it like my regressive state that I have access to, but I will go ahead and tell people like for me, I think I'm just being me and I'm really comfortable being out, but I do sometimes feel like I'm a little too excited. So, you kind of go back in and you try to play the like, oh, I'm cool and I'm aloft. And sure, you guys are speaking social terms that I can make faces that make me look like I know what you're talking about, but whatever a bear crawl is sure. I just kind of like wait for people to like clue me in and I'm like, did they catch me? I have yet to be caught unless I speak. So stay silent.
I love it, and you definitely shouldn't stay silent. Listening to you speak is such a joyful experience. I just wanted to share. I got like little goosebumps a couple times when you were speaking, so thank you for that.
Savant, if anyone
Definitely.
ever tells you you're too much, those are the wrong people.
Exactly. Kristen.
Yes. So what have I not unmasked over the last like 2 years of my life? Just like casually blowing up my life and starting over. The first thing that springs to mind is that unmasking as a process will very quickly act as a litmus test for who your safest people are. I know that for me, when I went on my big like self-discovery coming out as a lesbian journey last year, I feel like this story could also apply to unmasking neurodivergence as well. But some of my closest friends to me were quite angry because I had been inauthentic with them. They said, what the heck? Like, you've been gay this whole time? What? Like, you hid this from me and you were inauthentic and you were deceptive and dishonest. And I did not know how to explain to someone who had never experienced like repression or masking, like, my dude, I did not know. Like, this was something that my conscious mind like hid from me. And it was a very quick reckoning of, okay, who is safe in my friend group for me in this moment? And that was very, very tough. I kind of had to unlearn this accusation that I was somehow like a master manipulator and I had deceived all of my friends. I'm laughing, but it was very sad. I'm laughing and coping. And I think one of the ways that I have evolved my relationship with that is thinking about masking kind of as a drag performance. Like it's because it's not like you're being inauthentic necessarily. Like it is a persona that is not how you exist authentically if you were relaxed, but there is a nugget of you in it when you are masking. um, and that also reminds me of something my new therapist suggested to me recently while I've been on this journey of learning what unmasking feels like is to draw a picture of what what you look like when you're masking versus not. And I thought about that and I was like, okay, if I had to, I have not done my therapy homework yet. I have not done this drawing, but I know what it would look like if I drew my masking self. It would be very colorful drag makeup, like so over the top, trying really, really hard to be charismatic and theatrical and likable. Like, hi, please like me. I have all the energy in the world and I'm so chipper and I promise you'll like me. That's Kristen masking. And another tool that has been very, very helpful to me at honestly the beginning of my unmasking journey, like I was diagnosed autistic like 5 seconds ago, is just starting to name exactly what does masking feel like in your body, like somatically. I know that for me, it feels like my face starts to hurt because I'm making these enormous facial expressions to try to be entertaining. It feels like I'm not breathing normal. Like I'm doing it right now. I feel like I need to I briefly took a speech class in high school and my teacher told me like, Kristen, did you know that at the end of every sentence you go because you're not breathing while you're speaking. So that's a big part of my unmasking is learning how to breathe again. So I would really recommend that. Write it down in a list. Like when I am masking, what does my body feel like? Like maybe your shoulders get really tense. I know that's another big thing for me as well is like I just like start to go like this. So I just need to like go like that and take a big deep breath out and just relax my face. I don't have to make the world's biggest golden retriever faces all the time. I will still be lovable.
I love that. And you put that so well into words. I also forget to breathe all the time and have been called out by teachers so many times. They literally yell breathe at me. So I'm glad that I'm not the only one out there. Jill.
Yes, the hurting smile of the mask is so real. Oh, that's a good indicator. That's a good physical indicator. And kind of that tightness, that feeling. A lot of what you folks have shared definitely resonates. What came to mind when I first saw this question is alcohol, alcohol and drugs, and how they have played a like front and center role in my mask throughout my life for for the longest time. Certainly mostly with my neurodivergence rather than my queerness, that all my friends were queer in university, and I've I've never really felt particularly you know in the closet about it. Particularly, it's something that I like to think of as being obvious about me, and it's not something that I cover up in any way or have ever done so intentionally. But my neurodivergence for sure, and alcohol has played a big role in my mask, and unmasking that is really challenging, and it's something that I'm really only starting to skim the surface on now. Like, who am I when I don't use alcohol and drugs to feel comfortable. And it's a really challenging space. And I think that it's not talked about enough in both the neurodivergent or the queer communities, where those types of tools and strategies are used. And so that's really where I see my mask coming out the most. But I think also what comes up for me is that I think I have been protected from masking in a lot of ways because of my whiteness, my cisness, my and my socioeconomic status primarily, I would say, is the most significant thing that has protected me. I can move through spaces really safely and easily and be accepted because of those things. Those things are often, where people are looking for comfort, like, okay, you're like us, you kind of are similar enough, even if you're, maybe a bit different, being from the same socioeconomic background and being white and being cis, creates that level of safety and comfort that has allowed me to not necessarily feel like I have to consciously mask too much. But again, where it really does show up is in social situations with drinking, and so I think that conversation around alcohol and the role that it plays in our communities is a really important one. And people are definitely talking about it, but I think that it can be explored a lot more.
Yeah, you touched on so many important topics. I wish we had like a podcast episode for each of them. But we are 3 minutes away from the end of it. So what I am going to do is, Orion, can you go to the last question? Also, this is a low score of, sorry, the one right before. Getting through 3 questions is the lowest score, which means it's the highest score that a panel has ever gotten. So you guys crushed it. Yes. So I am going to make a challenge that everyone is going to give one sentence to answer this question. If it's 2, it's fine, but try to go to one sentence. What is one thing that you wish, let's say if you could go back to and talk to the younger you who just either got diagnosed, came out, whatever you want to define it, just someone who is in a way earlier space than you are now, what would you say say to that person? Because there might be that person in this audience or listening to ADHD rewired right now. And I would say Eric looks the most ready.
I do.
You have a ready face, I guess. I don't know if you're masking.
It's funny when you were talking, Jill, and you were talking earlier about like your face hurting from smiling, and that's the mask. And that resonated so much. I remember like having people like say to me like, "Yo, you just are such a happy person," and like I'm just thinking like, "Oh, if you actually know what was going on in my mind right now." So yeah, I definitely related to that. So something that I wish that someone had told me when I was diagnosed. Related to being queer or related to just like
Just like
everything?
an affirmation, word of advice, something positive. It's not very
Um,
strict rules.
I would say it's just be completely you and don't worry about your mother.
I love it. Kristen.
You're safe. People are out there. Don't give up.
Oh, I love that. Jill.
There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken and you don't need to be fixed.
Savant.
Neurodivergence and divinity aren't too far away from each other. Beware.
Okay, mic drop. Let's end it on that one. That was great. You all crushed it. Thank you. Thank you so much for being awesome. My face does hurt from smiling, but I was not masking. Those were real smiles. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being a panelist. We are at the very end of our time, so everything will be sent out afterwards. It'll also be on ADHD Rewired. Eric, would you like to say anything to close the podcast episode?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. And thanks for listening and for tuning in. And I will just and I'll drop a link to Shimmer in the show notes of the episode. And just happy Pride, everyone. Go out there and be as gay as possible.
Happy Pride. Bye, everyone.
You've tried to do it all alone, but seems like something's been missing. It's not about more effort now, it's structure you've been missing. Coaching, rewired.com. Stop pre-registration today.